Welcome to Rooted to Thrive, conversations to elevate our humanity. I'm your host, Rochelle Peterson Ansari, Professor P for short. This is your podcast sanctuary for cultivating mindsets and skills to elevate our shared humanity. We're taking a deep dive into practical strategies to evolve as anti-racist, culturally competent, and inclusive individuals and leaders. In each episode, we're bringing you real-world examples and actionable takeaways. We're going to talk about personal growth, fostering connection, and creating positive change that dismantles systemic barriers and creates environments where all of us are valued, empowered, and activate our collective power. This is Rooted to Thrive. Hi there, and welcome back to everyone joining us on Rooted to Thrive, Conversations to Elevate Our Humanity podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Peterson Ansari, aka Professor P. Today, we have Chason Forehand, founder of HR for You, Incorporated, and a 20-year HR vet. So this is exciting. Chason and we met through a mutual acquaintance who he interviewed on his LinkedIn show. And as I was listening, I noticed that Chason was unapologetic about placing people over everything in business. And when Chason shared how what leaders do at work not only influences the people at work and the business, but has a social impact on their families and communities, I had to invite him to take a deeper dive on this show. All right. So Chason, I am honored to have you joining me today. How are you doing?
I am doing all right. I'm doing better now that I'm with you. So
Excellent.
That was awesome. That was quite the introduction. Thank you so much.
Listen, well deserved, well deserved. So listen, we're discussing today the ripple effect, the people first strategies. So to get started, can you give us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in this work?
Sure. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I
Okay.
cry a little. For those of you in the audience that are from the New York area, I cry every time I pass by that building. I used to love that magazine. So the Reader's Digest version is that I'm the oldest of a gaggle of boys. We grew up where our real mom was abusive and abandoned us. And our stepmothers didn't like us because we weren't theirs. And we just didn't have that maternal influence in our lives. And it really created havoc for me as a young man early on in my life. And there are some things that I started developing habits that ended up creating bad situations for me. So by the time I was in high school, I had already started drugs. And by the time I was in college, I was full blown drug addict. And it ended up getting me kicked out of school and making my life to where I was homeless. So I had to get back to square one where I learned to care about myself and love myself and be okay with the person staring back at me in the mirror.
Yes.
And that while I was on that journey, I happened to be in an industry that is usually not very forgiving. I was in the culinary world, and I spent a lot of years, over 20 years in that realm. And that's how I fell into human resources, because I was the guy that people went to for help. Even though I was having trouble helping myself, I was very good at seeing problems and fixing them along with helping people. And so I was the one that people would, leaders would say, hey, we want you to hire, we want you to train, we want you to have courageous conversations. And that's where my HR journey started. And believe it or not, in an industry where human resources too many times is having a come to Jesus meeting out by the dumpsters and back, I learned what is human resources? And really it boils down to people. So as I grew, I formed my own company in 2012. And as I was working in corporate America, I was building my company and my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2018, not having a crystal ball to know that, the pandemic was right around the corner, I left a very toxic work environment where I was responsible for a lot of people. I was responsible for the HR department. I was responsible for our warehouses and for our home office, which was on Fifth Avenue in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and our retail operations. And yet it was such a really devastating leadership functionality that was going on, where we would make decisions as a group, execute them, and then the owner would just change his mind last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it affected people's lives and livelihood. And
Yes.
I finally just got tired of it. I finally
Mm-hmm.
just got to a place where I couldn't take it anymore. And I had built up enough clients, and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna be on my own. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to figure out my own insurance, and I'm not gonna make nearly as much money as I used to make, but I'm gonna be my own boss.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out and I started helping. I was already building that clientele of helping small to medium sized businesses with project based human resources. So instead of you paying a monthly fee to an organization, you could call me, and I would come and I would do trainings, sexual harassment prevention training. I
Mm-hmm.
would come in and help you with your policy and procedures. I would come in and do evaluations and take a look at your structure and see what everything was about. And then
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic hit, and I lost 75% of my clients, just disappeared off the face of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I doubled down on something that I was very passionate about. I've always been passionate about nonprofits and donating my time, being a volunteer, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with Habitat for Humanity and building homes and doing other things like that. So they were in a lot of trouble during the pandemic because they lost all their volunteers.
Right.
So I started doing pro bono work, and I've done over 1,000 hours of pro bono work since 2019, and keep giving back to that community because it's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I shifted our focus um, with my business to helping only social good entities. So my clients are all social good NGOs, nonprofits, even some B Corps. And then I wanted to take it even a step further. So in 2022, we created HR for You Incorporated, which is a charitable 501c3 nonprofit based in New York that addresses three major issues: pay equity, pay equality, and living wages. I live in a town where almost 6 out of 10, I live in a black and brown community where almost 6 out of 10 people make below living wage, and that there's 30% poverty. So what do we need to do beyond awareness to create action, to wake up leaders so that they understand that when they pour into people, when they give back to people, when they take care of their own people, guess what's going to happen? Their bottom line is going to thrive, and they're going to create a rippling effect that doesn't just impact their bottom line. It's going to impact every single person they employ, their families, their friends, and the communities that surround them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a true rippling effect.
Yes.
So we've taken it even one step further, that we are trying this year to do one of our most bold programs, which is boots on the ground. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to continue our advocacy. We're going to continue talking about what we do, but we're also going to open up what we call Transformation Kitchen, so that we can show business leaders how they can make profits and still pour into people and still pay living wages. And we're going to show people what pay equity, pay equality, and living wage equality looks like.
Like, excellent. And I don't need to ask you how investing in people in the workplace elevates our humanity, right? It,
No,
right. It's a given.
it is a given. It is a given.
But I do
I'm,
want you to talk a little bit more about how how a leader, right, invests in their people, and what that impact on the family, on the community looks like, just for one example.
well, I think the if a leader came to me and said, you know what, I want to start this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to care about my people. I want to make a change. I want to have better results. The first thing I'm going to say is listen. Literally go on a listening, as my friend Lindsay Dowd says, go on a listening tour.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to your people, sit down, and don't make this a one-time event. Make this a daily occurrence where you are taking the time to invest, to listen, to ask questions, to get feedback, and that you continue in that manner and gain trust
Mm-hmm.
and make decisions with your people.
Well, you obviously have seen the success of this approach, right?
Absolutely.
So, can you give us a concrete example of how that worked in an experience you've had?
Absolutely. And I'll go back to I ask people all the time. I even have it on my LinkedIn thing. Ask me about these chevrons. So I have a picture of me. I changed my photo to
Mhm.
show me in a chef coat that has a chevron on the side of it. That's a military insignia that looks like an upside down V. And I will go and it relates to what you're asking me.
Mhm.
In a very high end culinary environment that had two locations, we had huge turnover. Now, turnover in restaurants is already horrible, but
Okay.
this was like a revolving door.
Hmm.
When I was asked to take over both these restaurants as the executive chef, the first thing I did is say, I want carte blanche to create training programs and to do what I need to do to get people in here and stay. And
Okay.
they said, okay, as long as it works, we're all good for it. Let's do it.
Okay.
When you could train that position to someone else, or
Mhm.
you learned another position,
Mhm.
or you went a period of time without missing a shift, you got a chevron. And
Okay.
then you would get another chevron. And then you would get another chevron. And then you would get a second coat or a third coat with your name on it. I can't tell you how impactful that simple gesture
Mhm.
was. So I started by listening. I started by coming in and instead of saying, hey, it's my way or the highway, I'm the new chef in town. You're going to listen to me. We're going to do this. I had a lot of black and brown employees. Here I am as this 5'8" white guy running in here like I'm all hyper. You know, from meeting me, I'm very excitable. So I can rub people the wrong way.
Okay.
So instead of us having revolving door, we kept people for 5 years or more.
Wow.
Instead of having people call out, I mean, we would have an average of 3 call outs a week.
Mhm.
We got to where it would be when someone called out, literally other people would be trying to sneak their phone out to text them and say, you need to get in here. You know, they managed themselves.
Wow.
They started caring.
Mhm.
Our We cut in half our food costs
Mm.
because people cared about their stations, and they stopped wasting. They stopped sneaking food. They stopped trying to steal food. They stopped trying to throw away food,
Right.
and they cared about the
Mm.
job that they did.
Right. Mhm.
We were able to shrink every single one of the lines within 6 months.
6 months. Wow.
Within a year, we had cut everything in half, and we were already I had a whole crew. I had my whole A crew that were all in Black Chef boats. And when anybody came in, they were like, "How do I get one of those? How do I earn that?" Well, let me tell you. And they would tell them, "Oh, you want this coat? Well, let me tell you what you got to do.
Right.
We got to see something from you. And here's what we got to see." It became pride. It flowed out pride. They learned, they unlearned, they relearned, and so did I. And that's the important thing. Even things that I had preconceived notions because they worked in my past did not work here. And I needed to unlearn and relearn. And in that course of them seeing me put my hand up, seeing me say, "Hey, I goofed. I'm wrong."
Okay.
Oh, Chason's going to take ownership. He's not going to hide. He's not going to blame other people. He's going to put his hand up. He's going to take ownership. He's going to show up for himself, and he's going to show up for other people with integrity. I can trust him. I can show up for him. I feel psychologically safe here that I can fail forward. I can move. I can. Someone said the other day, and I really, really like this. I fail in place because I'm learning on the fly. I am learning in place. I am changing my mindset in place. I like that, really. And hearing myself say "fail forward," I just remembered that, and I'll have to share that with you. Share that post with you too. It's phenomenal.
All right.
But I mean, good grief. I have been when I was in a multi-unit level, where I was a district manager and then a regional manager for a company. I would have my teams would win the grand prize, first place, and second place of all the contests, and people would get mad. They were like, other district managers, regional they would all get mad, and they would, everybody, like the CEOs and all the C-suite people will come flooding me. Why does this happen? And I tell them the same thing I'm telling you, because if you go to any one of my stores, they're all the same. The names have changed. The people are different. The personalities and the business structure, and there's slight variances, but we all have the same mindset of how we want to win and how we want to show up. And that thrives throughout everything. And they know that I'm going to share with them, and I'm going to hold up my hand when I fail, and I'm going to fail in place, and they can fail in place too.
You talk about that workplace environment the same way I talk about education, right? Like learning environments. People are showing up who want to be cared for. And they do show up when they feel cared for. When the leader in the space, whether you are in a classroom or outside, let's just say you're in a classroom, right? And you show them that you make mistakes, that you're okay admitting mistakes, I should say, right? They see you make
right, exactly.
Admit it or not. Right. And you take accountability for that. It gives them permission, right, to make mistakes. And what's wrong with making mistakes? We make mistakes on the learning journey.
It's part of life.
It is a part of life, right? You don't know how to do something that you're learning how to do in the first place. That's why for me, it's been really challenging to understand why it's not okay to make mistakes in a learning environment. I'm like, but everybody, right? Like when I first pick up a guitar, do I know how to play it? No.
Yeah.
It's going to sound horrible as I am learning. So I'm going to make many, many mistakes, whether it's, listen, this entrepreneurial journey, many, many, many mistakes, right? That we make. as we learn on the journey, it has to be okay to do that. But we don't have that kind of environment, I think, in most formal educational spaces, at least not in the US. I know of some private spaces that may do that, but not in our public, right, free education that we offer
Yeah.
for the most part. And a lot of times in private spaces too. But I know some private spaces that do allow people to be like that, promote or nurture psychological safety, because it's okay to be wrong. I literally have to tell college students when I start the first day in here, it's okay to be wrong. People look at me like I'm crazy. They look until they go through a process with me and understand that she meant what she said. I tell them, I care about you before I know you. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. I mean, I just do, right? That comes from, I believe that I was created for a purpose, and it connects to people, right? And relationships and so forth. So I want more people like that in those kinds of spaces, but I want them at work, no matter what industry I'm in,
Yeah.
right? Just like what you're talking about is powerful. I want to slightly shift to the impact this has, because you talked about the impact outside of the workplace, right? So I'm assuming in those spaces that you talked about, where people are thriving, they also had a living wage.
Hmm.
And if they didn't when you got there, they did by the time you left.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that you say that it has a ripple effect, right? When you invest like the way you did in the Chevron example. After you invested there, I see how it had an impact on the workplace, on the employee's experience in the workplace. But tell me more about the ripple effect for their families and then their communities.
Sure. It's a great question because really that to me is equally as important. And I think as we create Transformation Kitchen and we think about how are we going to make sure that we have impact and how are we going to measure it, we have to really be careful not to let our ego and hubris get in the way of overstating what is reality.
Mm.
So I what the reality
Mm-hmm.
is that when you are a person that's in a place where you are safe and you are well and you are taken care of financially and mentally and physically, you are sound holistic.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to automatically feel better about that space, about that work, about showing up, which means you are automatically going to feel better about your life in general in that status. You're going to carry that light with you outside of this place. Plus, you now have the ability to financially take care of your family. So your family is buying groceries and is going to the local deli and maybe goes out every once in a while to their favorite little place.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you are maybe you're part of a church or a community group. You are investing in that community. You're part of that connection. It starts to thrive beyond you and beyond your family. It starts to interweave into this collaboration of human beings. And that is like that's the rippling effect. It comes from, okay, I'm Sally, I'm in this place. I'm being taken care of. Now I'm home and my husband and my two kids and all of this that's going on. And then that spreads out to all my friends and my family and my church community and my grocery store and this and that and the other. And then that, keeps on growing. There's an old 70s commercial um, that had they had the hair product, and the one lady is in the screen, and she's saying, talking about, I think it's Ajuli, and she's talking about, or
Oh,
I don't know, Jardiance or something, and she's like, my hair smells so terrific, and it's all this stuff, and I tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so on, and the screen starts duplicating, and you see this like all of these people
mhm.
all of a sudden. It's like that. You that rippling effect is you talking about your work and talking to your friends and being well and feeling good and
Yeah.
spreading that joy in life to other people. And then that spreads that further and further and further. What if everyone had that? Would we have road rage?
Mm.
Would we have people literally flipping people off in their cars? Would you be more patient when you're walking down the street and someone steps in front of you because they didn't see you? In the grocery store, would you be a little less jazzed up if you had to wait in line a little bit longer because you're in an environment where we spend a lot of our lives working so that we can live life,
Mhm.
and
Right.
your work environment is positive. So guess what? Now all of these other things are impacted by that positivity.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, again, I always have, I think education a lot because spent 36 years there, right? And I keep thinking about the quality of the experience of educators.
Mm,
Think about it. If we treat people like they don't know anything, right? That they have to be told everything to do every second, and they are not feeling like they're thriving, how can they help children? How can they help youth? How can they help young adults thrive,
yeah,
right? What I heard you say, period, right, is that facilitating people's ability to be their best selves is what's required.
amen.
And those of us who lead from middle management to, the owners to presidents and CEOs, the responsibility is with us, them, right? The people who are entrusted to lead
Yeah,
is to help people have that experience of joy from the inside out. And this does not mean that correct me if I'm wrong, this doesn't mean that every person that has been hired is the right person for that community, or that community is right for that person. It doesn't mean that for every person, but assuming that we are hiring for people who are capable to do the work that that the institution needs to reach its goals. If we treat everybody like you have the potential, that we believe in you, that's what I hear you saying, right? Like if we believe that you have the potential, if even if you don't have it at the door, that can literally not only change the mindset or affect the mindset and the work that gets done in the workplace, but change trajectories for families because people are experiencing joy. They are
yeah,
experiencing their best selves, and it's being recognized.
and the community. So the families and the community.
Right.
It keeps on rippling
Mhm.
from the person, the employee, to the family, to their friends, to the
Mhm.
community at large. That's the rippling effect. And
Yeah.
you're right. Hey, have I made if I made mistakes in hiring,
Mhm.
and in places like what I described to you in the restaurant group that I was part of, where I talked about the chevrons, people they're not afraid to tell me, and they knew that they could talk to me, and they're not afraid to tell me this is not a good fit for our family.
Okay.
And I got to hold up my hand and say, I made a mistake. You know,
Okay.
it, there are, you're going to make mistakes. We are human beings. That is the nature of us learning, unlearning, and relearning. We are going to make mistakes. The key is to identify where the mistake happened, how it happened, improve on your mindset, your strategies, everything that you do, to so that you don't make that mistake again, and correct your mistakes as you can.
Right. And that's for the leader, that's for the employee, that's for everyone.
Yeah,
And I would dare say the leader first. Like we
abs-
have to literally be examples. Okay. Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. If you're not, they're going to go by what they see you do, not what they hear from
There.
you.
That's right.
Walk the talk. Show up
Yeah.
and be that person who doesn't just say, "Hey, do all this stuff," but actually does it themselves.
Yes. And this is something that I think multiple generations that are in the workforce need to hear. Okay. I'm Generation X. I grew up at a time where people told us, do as I say, not as I do. And so, every generation before that heard some version of that, right? And
Yeah.
so people believe, right, in personal life, in their work life, in their lives, that as adults or as people in authority in some way could literally not do what they're expecting others to do.
Yeah. It's
It's a real
wow.
thing.
I've had this conversation with a couple of different people, and it was funny. I had a podcast where there were four of us, and literally all four of us were from different um, generations.
Mhm.
I'm a boomer, and we just went around the whole thing, and it's funny because there are 5 generations in the workforce right now. So if you're not tapping in
Mhm.
to the diversity of all that is held within each group,
Yeah.
you are missing out.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes. And listen, Gen Z will tell you because they there, right? They will call you out.
They would call you out.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not afraid. They're
They're
not afraid.
not. I'm so thankful that I had experiences with college students all along the way because I've been primed, right? I've been primed. And it's shocking to others, right? Like in my generation, the generations that anchor me, right? So boomers
Yeah.
before me, generation, I think they were what, I'm X, Y was after me, right? Like that, it's jarring to hear someone confront you, right, at work or call you out when you make a mistake. But again, if we position ourselves as people, like as humans, that we're going to make mistakes, it will help us.
Yeah.
It serves us well. It's not about saving face, it's not about looking good. It's about investing in people. I really
Oh,
appreciate your perspective on that. Yes. So, you've given us several strategies. I really appreciate the clear story that you shared. Are there any other practical strategies you would recommend to leaders on how they can that they can implement to prioritize the well-being of those they serve? I mean, you may have said it all, but I want to make sure you have room to share anything else you would share.
I appreciate that. I think it really, again, I think it starts with listening and asking good questions. And then I think it also is important that you build in follow-up conversations, one-on-ones, that you are creating good spaces. I'm a big fan of creating mentorships
Mhm.
within groups. I think that's important. I also think it's important for you to provide whatever resources people need
Mhm.
within reason, so that, and I think about this from a standpoint of, we have multiple people on our advisory board and our board of directors
Mhm.
that are handicapped, but some of them are with unseen handicaps, or disabilities.
Right. People with disabilities.
And the the thing that always strikes me is that doesn't make anybody less, it makes them different. And they may need tools, and this is beyond the ADA,
Mhm.
beyond American Disabilities Act, and being a leader that provides, whatever someone with disabilities needs. It could be as simple as someone saying, I really need to have a different type of desk, or I need, number two pencils. How is there, sometimes it's something so simple, but it means something, it means the world to someone else.
Mhm.
So really listening and trying to make those things happen. I'm not saying that you create a supply store, and there may be some things that you just can't do. It's got to be, you've got to be financially sound by the end of the day, and you need to make good decisions. But, you know, taking care of the things that you can take care of, that are things that tell people that you
Right.
care about them,
Right.
and showing up. And then I'm a huge, huge fan of random acts of kindness, which
Okay.
we don't see enough in the workplace. So
Okay.
that, what does that mean?
Mhm.
That may mean that you, I'm just going to give some weird examples. That may mean that you, in the course of your conversations with somebody, find out that they are a Yankees fan.
That's
So
right.
one day the Yankees are playing, at the end of the week, they're playing so and so, and you give them 2 tickets and say, hey, we're going to let you leave early so you can go enjoy the game. And oh, by the way, here's 2 tickets. Now, how awesome is that?
That's right.
You
Mhm.
know, that's just an example, but I mean, that you are telling someone, one, that you listen,
Mhm.
that you care about them, and that you want them to experience life outside these four walls.
Right. That's
For people that have employees that are all over the place that work from home,
mhm.
man, I think you got to double down on your listening, your finding, because everything's across a screen.
True.
So now, I mean, you got to really be intentional
Right.
about being part of their lives and doing cool things to let them know that you care about them, because otherwise you're just a keyboard warrior. You're just a keyboard warrior tacking out stuff, you know?
Yes, and it's something we have to be conscious of in post pandemic, right? Because the nature of work has changed,
Mm-hmm.
and many of us, I was in person for the most part, right, in all of the work that I did until 2020,
Yep.
and so we have to relearn what makes a difference, right? Like, don't focus on, oh, I have to do everything through this screen right now, but focus on, what were some of the things that I did in person that I need to do while people are across the screen now, too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's assuming, many people were doing things that poured and invested in people in the first place. And I was thinking about when you talked about the random acts of kindness, I was thinking about, okay, yeah, like some of us like didn't make, like as middle managers, didn't really make enough money to buy other people tickets to games. But there are ways that we could show that we've been listening, right?
Yeah.
Someone who shares that they are getting, they're trying to buy a house, even sharing information and resources that you have, like, oh, I came across this the other day, and pass that on to them
Yeah.
to help them know that you were listening and you want to help support them.
Yeah. The simplest things. Um,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
the cost.
they can be really, they can be very, they can seem inconsequential
Mm-hmm.
and mean be mountainous to other
To
people.
other people, yeah.
You don't know, but just doing those little things,
Mhm.
it, it's important.
It's like a
I
deposit in a bank, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lady that was in a group that I was in. She was on the same floor at that toxic place that I worked at, the last corporate place, but she worked on the same floor as me, and she loved this particular kind of bagel. Bagels don't cost anything, and I learned that she takes the bagel a certain way, and I always got to the office before her. And so, and over time, I would get her cell phone. We traded cell phone numbers because we were communicating on different things. And I would just randomly, sometimes say, hey, um, we have coffee here at the office. I brought you a bagel.
Yes.
So come on. I mean, what is that? A couple dollars. I
Mhm.
mean, and again, it doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be stuff. It could be as simple as you write a note, and
Yes.
I'm big on, look, everybody's in a digital age. Give a handwritten note on a thank you card,
Mhm.
or a piece of paper, and you create your own thank you card, and you put down, man, I really appreciate you, and I just wanted to let you know you're doing a great job, and I appreciate you being here. Something simple, and you put it
Right.
on their desk. How awesome is that? What did that cost you? Nothing. Cost you
Nope.
nothing.
That's right. That's right. Investing in people, in people, in people. And I don't know how it all started. That these spaces where we will spend most of our day, where we have the most energy, right? Um, Focus mostly on the work, on the task, on the outcome, and not the individuals, at least
Hmm.
here in the US, because I don't think that is always the case in every other country.
Not always.
Right. Um, but that's where we are. And many of us need to learn that we have to unlearn that,
Hmm.
right? We have to unlearn, because so many people just accept it, just accept, like, this is the way it is. They'll say, oh, this person has the type of job where they put so much pressure on them and they just have to keep working and working and working. And I would dare say, well, that person has a choice.
Yeah,
That
we
person
do.
does have a choice that they don't think they have, right? And then they become managers and leaders and so on and so forth, and then replicate that.
Yeah, you carry forth not only your trauma, but ever your
Mhm.
mindset and your biases. That you carry all that with you.
Of course, right? And so there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do.
Amen to
To
that.
Yeah, a lot of us have to unlearn. We all have to unlearn something, I would dare say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had a very rich conversation. I feel like people can walk away with some practical strategies for leadership, really just investing in people to help them be their best selves and believe in them, right? And right, just believe in them, their potential to be there, to get there. Um, Ask good questions, have follow-up conversations, create mentorship opportunities, provide resources people need. And of course, you have to listen to them. And random acts of kindness go a very, very long way. I love that your Chevron example gave us actually ways you can measure, the effectiveness of strategies that have been put in place in a workplace too. Is there any last advice you would give to someone who who's looking to improve, excuse me, their ability to invest in people? And then are there any resources you would recommend?
Well, the first thing I would say is just do it.
Okay.
And that seems very counterintuitive, but honestly, I think the problem with most people when it comes down to I just don't know what to do with my hands, this Ricky Bobby moment of I just don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Doing something,
Mm,
even moving in a forward place,
mhm,
crawling before
mhm,
crawling, walking,
mhm,
you taking the steps. It's messy. It's not a
yeah.
linear journey. And neither is business isn't a linear journey. Entrepreneurship is not anything associated with business. It's just this wavy roller coaster. So
Mhm,
you've got to be able to stop on a dime. You've got to be able to take corners. You've got to be able to adjust and adapt and overcome.
mhm,
And you've got to learn to thrive in the mess.
mhm.
And
Thrive in
so I think the biggest advice is just do it. I mean, Nike was on to something. I mean,
Yes, they
look at how
were.
they exploded. I mean, they they were on to something when they said, quit the excuses, put on the shoes and go. So
Okay.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. I want to thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I love talking to you. As always, is there a way people can find you and
Oh,
contact?
we're all over social media. So you can find us on all our social media channels. You can also find us at hr dash the number 4 the letter u.org.
Hmm.
And yeah, all the anything and everything about us you can find there. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you too. And I want to thank everyone who stopped by to listen today. I really, yeah, I'll admit it. You know, I, we've had some episodes or many of our episodes are visual. This one is not because my camera's not working. I'm just going to say it. I'm feeling some type of way because I get to look at Chase's wonderful face, but you don't get the benefit of that today. Um, but thank you for listening. And please leave a comment, subscribe, and share this episode. And again, thank you for listening to Rooted to Thrive.